Hello and welcome back to posted number 9. Joining us today is Bambino. Bambino, can you say hi? Yeah, that's about as much as Bambino's going to do. But when we left off for posted last time, both Dee Dee and we'll call him Frost were kind of writing notes back and forth, trying to figure out whether or not they were going to have um, her join in for lunch again the next day, and they kind of left it off at that. When we left Art, Dee Dee got nudged, hard enough that he winced and dropped his backpack, rubbing his shoulder where he was hit. Noah Kyle got him, leading with his shoulder, though he had to stoop a little to get a good shot. There are other names for it: a bump, a check, a brush. At BMS, we call it a nudge, when somebody, usually someone bigger than you, or in Dee Dee's case, always somebody bigger than you, steps into your path and slams into you, catching you on the arm or the shoulder, preferably the one your backpack is slung across so that it gets knocked off. Better still if you're holding something, a bottle of Gatorade or a stack of books, something you can spill or scatter to multiply the embarrassment factor so that the rest of the students standing around you clap at your apparent clumsiness or even take pictures, before the great confiscation anyways, as you bent down to gather your things. Nudging is a fact of middle school life. It's inevitable, like puberty and armpit stink and lame assemblies. You just learn to live with it. It's better than getting tripped and probably a heck of a lot better than getting hit. I wouldn't know about that. I have never gotten in a fight. But I'd been nudged a dozen times, maybe more. Some of them were by accident, other kids honestly not looking where they were going. Most of them weren't. Some kids, you can see it coming. You can track the shift in trajectory, the other kid working the angle to guarantee impact. Sometimes they even smile at their friends before it happens. A premeditated shoulder slam. It's not a big deal. It's not like you've been shoved into a locker or had your head stuffed in the john. It's marking territory. Good fences make good neighbors. You just pick up your books and move along. It's not something you tell your parents about. It doesn't bear a remark of any kind. It was just an accident. That's what you tell yourself. Sometimes they would mock apologize, the girls more than the boys, make a big production of it. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you get in my way? That was the real insult. They made it your fault that you got nudged. Your fault for being invisible, for not stepping aside. Wolf didn't get nudged much, not that I saw anyway. More often he got dirty looks or snide comments from the kids who sat behind us in class. Dee Dee, he was an easy mark for nudging, though. His size was a big part of it. A stiff enough shoulder could actually send him spinning. And the drama, watching his face contort, seeing his cheeks burn. I'm pretty sure some kids nudged him just to hear him say, "Hey man, knock it off," in that nasally whine of his. Fortunately, nobody ever nudged Dee Dee or any of us when Bench was around. But Bench wasn't always around. We stepped out in the hallway after art and headed towards the last period of the day when Dee Dee suddenly spun sideways, his backpack slipping off his left shoulder, his math textbook tumbling out of it along with a bunch of papers. "Hey, watch it," he squealed. Noah Kyle twisted his head, turned his bottom lip. "Whoops, didn't see you down there." Beside him, Jason Baker laughed. They were the usual suspects: Noah, Jason, Cameron Cole, a few other kids. Kids we'd been through the past 2 years with. Kids whose shoulders we were used to. Kids whose laughs we could identify with our eyes closed. Some of them had been nudging Dee Dee since elementary school. Though they certainly weren't the only ones. They were at least the most reliable jerks in school. Cameron had once accidentally dumped his whole orange juice down my back in 6th grade. And Jason seemed to be gunning for Wolf for over a year now, whispering things by his ear in class, flicking paper wads at his back, though in true wolfish fashion he had just shrugged it off. Dee Dee was a different story. I bent down and helped him gather his stuff. "You okay?" "Yeah, whatever," he said, sniffing and stuffing his papers back into his math book. He looked down the hall, the opposite way of Noah and his friends, not wanting to look me in the face either. Then he stood up with a deep breath and reshouldered his pack. "Come on," he said. It was just a nudge, though Dee Dee walked a little slower than before, and keeping between me and the wall and the rest of the way, just in case. No doubt he was imagining a ball rug bursting through the tiled floor, picking up Noah Kyle and crushing him in his fiery fury. Or maybe that was just me. After the last bell, I went to my locker to grab my books before meeting up with Bench and heading out to the bus. On days when we didn't have practice, which weren't many, we at least got to sit together on the way home. When I got there, I found another yellow square of paper stuck to the door. I figured it was from Dee Dee, some little quip or stupid drawing, maybe of Dee Dee scouring Noah on the tip of a sword. As I got closer, though, I realized the note wasn't from him at all. It didn't have a name, and I didn't recognize the large looping script, but I knew immediately who wrote it. I looked around to make sure nobody was watching, and then I peeled the note from the door, folding it twice and shoving it in my pocket. "Thanks for lunch," the note said, and beneath it was a drawing of a snowman. I went to go find Bench. The next chapter is called The Fish. The day Bench almost got us all killed was the day I knew we were inseparable, that he'd always have our backs. It's no exaggeration. I really did think we were about to die, or at least, the very least, be beaten to sacks of bloody mush. I can still remember being called names while dodging through a playground full of little kids. I can still remember the look of terror on Dee Dee's face, the same look he got when we made him watch Jaws for the first time. I can still remember the bigger of the two kids nearly chasing after me, then tripping, planting his face in the mulch. But mostly, I remember Bench telling me he'd pay me back. It was this past summer, before 8th grade. Unseasonably cool enough that we all wore hoodies with our shorts. We were at Freedom Park, Branton's most popular stretch of green, complete with a plastic playground and a field big enough to fly kites in. We met up because our parents collectively kicked us out. Bench was back from whatever athletic camp his parents had shipped him off to. Wolf had just returned from a music competition in Grand Rapids. Dee Dee was desperate to start a new Dungeons & Dragons campaign. There was talk of Succubee, but the cloudless sky and our parents' nagging forced us to the park instead. Wolf brought Capri Suns. Dee Dee brought leftover naan to munch on. I brought the soccer ball. None of us played soccer unless you count my brief stint on the world's worst team in the 7-8-year-old division 6 years ago. But Dee Dee was literally incapable of catching a baseball, and we were tired of shooting hoops in Bench's driveway. Dee Dee could run, at least almost as fast as Bench, and if the ball happened to roll in front of his foot, he had a better than 50-50 shot of kicking it. Unfortunately, he still didn't have any aim, so when he shanked his first shot of the afternoon, well to the right of the trees we were using as goals, it sailed into a group of high school kids, knocking over a can of Mountain Dew and making me wonder if we shouldn't take Dee Dee bowling instead. There were 4 of them, sitting in a circle. 2 guys, 2 girls, probably juniors or seniors. Wolf said they looked like they were his brother's age. Maybe his brother even knew them. Dee Dee's shot bowled over the soda, and the ball came to rest by one of the boys, a tall blonde kid with gelled stiff hair and too tight shirt. He grabbed the ball and stood up to face us. Dee Dee apologized, of course, though he was too far away for the kid to hear. The 3 of us came and stood beside him. Wolf held his hands out, gesturing for the ball back. The boy holding it looked at the girl in the grass beside him. A watch this glance, if I ever saw one before. Then he twisted and gave my soccer ball a tremendous kick, smashing it clear the other direction. Another 50 yards, easy. Payback, I guess. I started to go after it when I felt Bench's hand on my arm, stopping me. "Hey," he called out. The high school kids looked over at us. Bench took a couple of steps toward them. "Hey," he said again, "that's our ball." "Then go get it," the boy who kicked it said. The girl sitting beside him brought a hand to her face, embarrassed, but the other 2 kids just smiled at each other. Bench wasn't smiling, though. He had his game face on, the one he always wore despite never playing when it mattered. He was still walking, getting closer and closer. We followed, afraid to let Bench go by himself, but still a step behind. "You're the one that kicked it over there," he said. "You go get it." The boy shook his head. "You're lucky I didn't cram it down your throat." His friend stopped smiling, and suddenly I felt his pain in my stomach. This was not a pain like getting nudged. These kids were a lot bigger than us. And strangers. In school, there's rules. There's people watching, at least most of the time. I wasn't the only one who was concerned. Wolf leaned over, speaking softly. "Bench, it's all right, man. Let's just go get the ball." Bench shook his head. "That guy's a jerk. It was an accident. Dee Dee didn't mean to hit it their way." "Yeah, all right. He's a jerk. The world's full of them. Let's just go get the ball and go." Wolf pulled on Bench's arm. Bench resisted at first, but with the second tug, his feet pulled loose and we dragged him across the field to where the soccer ball sat. I bent over and picked it up, all the while watching the 2 older boys watching me. Part of me burning at giving them the satisfaction. There's nothing worse than knowing you're right and someone else is wrong and still being on the losing end. "Let's just go back to my house," I said, suddenly wanting to be anywhere else. I figured that was the end of it. We started walking towards the playground where our bikes were racked, the swings and the slides full of carefree kids, little ones who didn't need a tribe yet, because when you're 5, everyone's a member of your tribe. I kept stealing glances at the cluster of high schoolers off to our left. The blonde one had his back to us, but one of the girls was still looking at us. we would have to pass by them. Not too close, but close enough for it to matter. Bench reached over and grabbed the soccer ball from my hands. I owe you a ball, he said. What? Need to get ready to run, he added. Before any of us could say anything or reach out to stop him, Bench veered left, taking just enough steps to ensure his accuracy, and then he hurled the ball as hard as he could, one-handed baseball style, right on the mark, and it rebounded right off the back of the biggest boy's head with enough force to nearly knock him over. I could actually hear it bounce off the kid's skull, a strangely satisfying thump. The next thing I heard was Bench's voice screaming, "Go, go, go!" We tore through the grass, all four of us, Wolf, Dee Dee, and me out front, Bench catching up quickly, waving on us like Indiana Jones fleeing from a pack of angry natives. One look behind me confirmed that, yes, both the teenage boys were on their feet in pursuit, cursing at us and demanding we get back here. My shoes skidded in the mulch as I ducked under slides and bridges, heading for the bike rack, thankful that none of us bothered to chain them up. I glanced back again in time to see the one who'd kicked my ball down, slipping to avoid running over a toddler, getting a mouthful of mulch. Bench was right beside me, grinning like an idiot. "Did you see that?" he said. I didn't even have time to yell at him or tell him how stupid he was and how we were about to be murdered in the middle of a playground, or what a great throw it was and maybe he should try out for quarterback, or to even ask him why he did it. But I didn't need to ask him that. I mean, you make your tribe, you protect each other from the wolves. We hopped on our bikes and we kicked off, careening into the street and pedaling as fast as we could from those two screaming teenagers, swearing to hunt us down and kick our butts, though they weren't that polite in their terminology. We rode all the way back to my house without stopping and collapsed in the front yard, laughing and gasping for breath. Dee Dee made the moment approximately geeky by saying, "Feel the wrath of Garthox the barbarian." Wolf ripped up a handful of grass and threw it at him, starting a grass war that would leave bare patches in the lawn, but I didn't care. We had just experienced the thrill of escaping annihilation. Bench was the hero, of course, but we were all in it together. Afterward, we lay on our backs, heads nearly touching, making a plus sign in the middle of the yard. Bench was lying to my right. "I don't believe you," I said to him. "Just glad I didn't miss," he said. "They had it coming," Wolf said. Bench smiled, a sort of proud of himself smile, I guess. I never saw that soccer ball again, and Bench never got around to replacing it, but I knew from that moment on exactly what we counted on Bench for. And we're going to stop there. See you next time.